Welcome to the deep dive. So you sent in some really compelling stuff this time.
Yeah.
We've got this Sky News Australia transcript talking about a pretty sharp tariff hike and also a text document that gives like a wider perspective on tariffs, history, that sort of thing.
Right.
And what we really want to dig into is, okay, with these potential increases, what does that actually mean for, the average American's finances? How might it affect households?
Absolutely. And that Sky News clip, it really just, boom, throws down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
The anchor mentions a whopping 104% tariffs going into effect on China. Bang. Right there.
Wow, 104%.
Yeah. And they frame it as part of the former Trump administration's strategy. The idea being put on the pressure, force China to the table for a trade deal, address those trade practice concerns.
It's definitely a dramatic number, and like you said, framed with a particular view. But then this tariffs.txt file we have, it gives a useful counterpoint, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests China sees its responses, like its own tariffs, more as, well, strategic moves.
Yeah.
A big global power protecting its economic interests in a really complex world.
Okay, so maybe let's back up just a sec. What is a tariff, fundamentally?
Good question. Let's get down to brass tacks. The text doc explains it pretty clearly. It's just a tax. A tax one country puts on goods coming in from another country.
Okay.
And the direct result, it makes those imported things more expensive. The hope, or the theory, is that this pushes people to buy stuff made locally instead.
Right. Buy American, that kind of idea. Okay, so this isn't a new invention then.
Not at all.
Our text doc mentions, like way back in the 1800s, the U.S. used tariffs on European goods.
Exactly. The idea then was pretty simple. Shield those young American industries, give them a chance against the more established European companies, to help our own manufacturing grow.
Right, give them a leg up.
Precisely, a deliberate policy. Then, fast forward to the 1930s, the Great Depression. Tariffs went up again.
What?
The main driver then was trying to protect American jobs, make imports so pricey, people had to buy American.
But that sounds like it could get messy. Did it work?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The text points out the big downside. Other countries didn't just sit there.
Retaliation.
Exactly. They slapped tariffs on American goods. And suddenly, global trade just sort of seized up. It really slowed things down.
A cautionary tale, maybe?
Definitely shows how these things can backfire. And the doc reminds us, it's not always the U.S. imposing tariffs. We faced high tariffs from others, too, on things like our cars, our farm products.
Okay, so it's a two-way street, which brings us to this idea of a tariff war. How does that play out?
The text lays it out pretty well. One country raises tariffs, the other feels it has to hit back, and maybe the first one retaliates again.
Oh, it escalates.
Right, this escalating cycle. And the real kicker, often, is who pays. Consumers, in both countries. Prices go up for imports, sometimes even for domestic goods if they use imported parts. Businesses get squeezed to higher costs. Maybe they can't export as easily.
So nobody really wins.
The text suggests it usually leads to economic pain all around. Eventually, you have to negotiate to sort it out.
Okay, so let's bring it forward. More recent times. How have tariffs on U.S. exports looked?
Our text file gives a bit of a timeline. Back in the 80s, early 90s, average tariffs on our stuff were actually, well, kind of higher, maybe 7 to 10% range.
Really? Where?
Especially things like agriculture, textiles, Europe, Japan. Those were places with some higher barriers back then.
So what changed?
Well, a big shift happened mid-90s, early 2000s. Tariffs dropped quite a bit, down to maybe 3 to 5% on average.
What caused that drop?
A couple of big things. The World Trade Organization, the WTO, started in 95, plus free trade deals like NAFTA. There was this general move towards opening up trade, lowering barriers.
And did that trend continue?
It did, yeah. Through the 2000s into the 2010s, average tariffs on U.S. exports dipped even lower, maybe 2-3%. Developed countries generally had low tariffs.
Okay, so things were opening up. But then, I sense a but coming.
But then, the 2010s, things shifted again. This is when we get into what people call the Trump tariff war.
Right.
The administration started raising tariffs, aiming specifically at big trading partners, China, obviously, but also the EU, Mexico.
And they retaliated?
Predictably, yes. They put their own tariffs on U.S. goods. The text gives examples like China hitting U.S. soybeans with tariffs up to 25%.
Ouch. For farmers.
Yeah. And the EU put tariffs, maybe 10-25%, on different U.S. farm and industrial goods. So even if the global average tariff didn't skyrocket, maybe it crept back up to that 3-5% level, The impact on those specific trade relationships was huge.
Which lands us right in the middle of the big debate, the one that Sky News piece really highlighted.
Exactly. On one side, you've got the argument pushed hard by the Trump administration. Tariffs are a tool.
A tool for what?
To level the playing field, stop what they see as unfair practices, get other countries to make better deals with the U.S. The transcript even floats that idea that China got rich because of tariffs from others in the past.
Interesting take.
It's a narrative that resonates if you think the system's been unfair. But then there's the big counter-argument.
The one about who actually pays.
Right. Many economists, businesses, they say tariffs are basically a tax paid by American consumers, American companies, because prices go up.
Does the transcript mention that?
It touches on it, yeah. Though it also gives the counterpoint that the exporting country might eat some of the cost too. It's debated.
What I thought was really striking in that Sky News clip, though, was them bringing up old clips. Schumer, Pelosi.
Yeah, Democrats advocating for tariffs on China years ago.
Right, like Schumer back in 2005 suggesting, 27.5%?
Citing unfair trade, job losses, human rights, proliferation concerns.
And Pelosi, even earlier, 96, asking how much more the U.S. should take before getting tougher.
It really shows that worries about trade with China, they aren't strictly partisan. There's a history there.
Provide some context, definitely. This idea that trade needs to feel fair, mutually beneficial. Okay, so turning to China's reaction more recently, our text file says they see it as
a strategic move to protect its interests. I mean, think about it. China's manufacturing is enormous. Big tariff hikes, they'd see that as a direct hit to their economy.
And the text also talks about how connected the U.S. and Chinese economies are, right?
Deeply interconnected. Even with China trading more elsewhere, the U.S. is still a massive market for them.
So a trade war hurts both sides.
Creates huge challenges for both, yeah. The text mentions China trying to diversify, find new markets, lessen that dependence on the U.S.
Okay. This brings us back to the core question, the reason we're diving into this today. What's the potential hit to American consumers, their financial well-being?
Right. And while the sources don't give us exact numbers, X million people will fall into poverty, they do let us see the mechanism, how this could happen.
Okay, walk us through that. Let's take that whopping 104% tariff again. If that hits stuff we buy all the time, electronics, clothes, toys, what happens?
The immediate thing. Those imported goods get a lot more expensive for the importers.
And they pass that cost on.
It's very likely, yeah. Retailers will probably have to raise prices on the shelf for consumers, at least partially.
Okay, so prices go up. Then what?
Then it starts to pinch household budgets. If your paycheck isn't going up as fast as the price of, say, your washing machine or your kids' shoes.
Your money doesn't go as far.
Exactly. Your purchasing power shrinks. And for families already running on tight budgets, that can mean really tough choices.
Like having to cut back, maybe on essentials?
It's absolutely possible. The sources point to this pressure. Families might have to sacrifice things they genuinely need because tariffs made them unaffordable. That's a direct potential impact.
And it's not just people on the edge, is it? What about, say, middle-class families?
Good point. Even if you can absorb the higher prices initially, imagine that going on for a while, paying more for everything month after month.
It eats into your savings.
It erodes savings, yeah. It makes it harder to build wealth, to get ahead. Someone maybe aiming for more financial security might find themselves stuck or even slipping back.
And someone comfortable in the middle class might feel less stable.
Could definitely chip away at that stability. Make them more vulnerable if something unexpected happens, like a job loss or a medical bill. So no precise numbers from the sources on how many people shift brackets, but the principle is there.
Higher tariffs mean higher costs,
which consumers ultimately bear.
And that can hurt financial well-being across the board, potentially even causing people to lose ground financially over time. Downward mobility.
That's the potential pathway the sources suggest. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What have we seen?
Well, tariffs are basically taxes on imports. They've been used for a long time for different reasons.
Protectionism, sometimes trying to gain leverage.
But they can backfire, lead to trade wars, hurt consumers and businesses.
Right. And the recent increases, especially aimed at China, have sparked huge debate in, retaliation. The goals might be things like protecting jobs or getting fairer deals.
But the potential downside is clear. Higher prices for us, economic strain all around.
So for you, our listener, who asked about the impact on American households, It seems clear, based on this material, that rising tariffs do risk hitting household finances hard.
Yeah, by making everyday things more expensive, squeezing budgets, and maybe even eroding savings and net worth over the long haul for some people, it really shows how connected everything is, doesn't it? Global economy, trade disputes, lots of different angles.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something to chew on.
Yeah.
Given this history, the back and forth on tariff policies, the constant debate, what kind of long-term strategies could actually balance a country's economic interests with the financial health of its own citizens in this globalized world?
That's a big question.
No easy answers there. Definitely something to keep thinking about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.